Hi, everybody. My name is Anderson Barbalho. I'm presenting the paper uh, of Internet of Things, IoT in Agriculture, an exploratory study on the production of growth tomato, industrial tomato, in the south of Goiás, Brazil. And this presentation is for the International Conference on Electrical Computer Communication and Mechatronics Engineering. This paper is based on the graduate project of Kaique Dias, a former student mine that uh, have oriented, supervised 2 years ago. Aline Lourenço is my master student, also working with me in this kind of project. Gabriela Silva and Marcos Cruz are also undergraduate students, and they are starting to work with me, especially with organic foods. And this paper was one of the first papers we have done in this kind of subject that was Agriculture 4.0. And so we have this kind of mindset in terms of disruptive technologies that could advance and transform business and the global economy and also agriculture. Uh, and we had, for example, this kind of issues in our introduction, discussion about Industry 4.0, what kind of technologies they are talking about when uh, discussing Industry 4.0, and the specific subject of IoT. That's one of the main technology in this kind of subject. And in Brazil, we have a Brazilian program for IoT development, including in agriculture. Um, and we have, for example, this kind of production from tomato production. It was one of biggest agriculture um, activity in the Goiás state that was in the center western part of Brazil. So the goal of this study is to wonder about the use of IoT by tomato producers, because traditionally we find that agriculture is not so uh, demanding for new technologies, but this way of thinking is changing rapidly, but not yet well discussed in the academic literature. Okay. It was so relevant for our country. We have already, as I said, a national program for IoT in the economy in general. Uh, we have a methodology that was based on exploratory research because this subject is not well studied uh, nowadays. It was an empirical investigation. We had interviewed some uh, tomato producers. It's a qualitative research because it was very exploratory and we had not possibility to have some kind of questionnaire and a lot of response. The objective of this study is non-probabilistic sampling because we had a table with a lot of tomato producers that was suppliers from Heinz industry, and we choose some of them in terms of technology introduction they had, and the amount of tomato that they sold to the company and so on. To collect the research data, the technique was the interview, as I already said, a semi-structured interview. The different phases of the content analysis are organized into three stages: the pre-analysis, when I and Kaique had a discussion about this kind of results, a material exploration, because we had some subjects to get from the interviews, and the treatment and analysis of the results that was explained here. In terms of the interview, we had 8 categories. We discussed about market trends in tomato industry, technological choices of the producers, characteristics of the adoption of these technologies, how they adopt, how was the decision-making process, and challenges faced by them, and elements for the workforce, because we thought that it was a very difficult issue to work with in this kind of subject. The participation of public and private institutions in terms of this kind of ecosystem that they had in agriculture, the results of the innovation and the financial results. So we had the Crafty Heinz factory here in Aeropolis, Goiás, and the company has its tomato production, but it also purchases vegetables from external producers. Uh, Producers were indicated to carry out this study uh, in the talk by Kaique, and he is a manager there in the company, and I had some uh, tips also in terms of this structure of the sample. And the study reached approximately 35% of the company's complete base of production, tomato producers, and 100% of the base for the studied region, that was Central Guyana. We had the production A, B, C, D, A, E, F, and G, with more than 3 years of experience in producing tomato. They had, in general, mechanical harvester, autopilot to fertilize the plant and cover production, automatic sprinkler irrigation at the center pivot. Some of them had conventional sprinkler irrigation, and so we had two possibilities for irrigation, but everybody used the autopilot to fertilize and so on. Our producers can be considered large, since the revenue was greater than 1,060 and six thousand reais. In terms of technology, also the interview found that the most used technology is the autopilot, as I already said. The use of autopilots aims to perform a precision crop for tomato, Um, the producers claim that this technology mainly improves the quality of operations in the field and consequently the quality of the product. And the main objective of the system is to save time and reduce workforce. And they also use the center pivot, but and also when it was a speaker irrigation, and they don't use some any kind of sensors that they could use in terms of IoT, for example, to detect the correct humidity of the ground and reducing or increasing the flow of water, but they don't use it. It was a possibility. Um, The decision to adopt technology among producers most reports occur through the proof that technology will bring significant results from the other producers. They copy each other. Uh, Producers use it to learn about this in agribusiness product fairs. They also have after-sales technicians from the companies, the large companies. They sell this kind of product of technology such as John Deere and New Holland to customize their equipment according to the specifications, yeah, to the soil, the head, the microclimate, and so on. Uh, and this kind of product fairs is so important for them, and also the observation from the neighborhoods. The adoption of Internet of Things tomato production, the objective of our interviewed producers when adopting new technologies to improve product quality, reduce cost, and increase production. This way, the business become more profitable and is conducted more systematically. They all of them shows a kind of satisfaction with this technology. Only two producers knew something about IoT and Industry 4.0 when we asked for. Um, some challenges is already happens for this kind of technology adoption. The main challenge is the cost and the lack of internet coverage in these more distant regions in the countryside, large difficulty, and the lack of support from public or private institutions in encouraging financing for useful machinery farming. Um, Many investments and support from funding, adoption of new technologies by workforce. The workforce has a lot of problems with this kind of new technologies. It's so difficult to train you to train the guys from this kind of utilization. The region's workforce is not qualified to operate the state-of-the-art technologies. Training and development of employees are not so well understood by producers. They find that technology is available and people will learn about, and it's not necessary training. But we know that uh, they do need some kind of training. Um, Mainly the training was provided by the manufacturers, but not for the producers and the farming guys. In terms of economic results, Some of them report an increase of 8% of annual revenue, but they told that 10% is a possible result if the technology is well implemented. Uh, and we had this problem of readiness for digitalization. They had problems, as already said, in terms of the mindset for producers that was not so well focusing in training, and they also are not thinking about the possibilities of Industry 4.0 or IoT, and they had the kind of island of improvement because, for example, they had the autopilot because it was a manufacturer offer, New Holland and um, John Deere and so on. They had this kind of technology. But for example, the central pivot or sprinkling irrigation that could use a lot of technologies in terms of IoT, they don't have this kind of integration. So it was Iceland on improvement because we had parts of the production well technology based and other parts not well technology based, and they had limits for the results in general in terms of revenue and so on. So we had this kind of problems in our countryside, the lack of internet coverage, lack of government incentives for financing purchase of machinery, and lack of specialized labor. Okay. And we also think that it was so important to have this kind of study in other regions of the Goiás state and other places in Brazil, other regions in Brazil, and repeating this research protocol, for example, in more systematized value chains such as agriculture, soya, and cotton, that was better provided in terms of technology. Thank you. It's my contact, and I'm available for supporting some issues regarding this kind of research with you guys. Thank you.